In Lesson 5, we're going to introduce two new topics, tables and frames. We're also going to be reviewing the business of styles that are so important in word processing. To get started, we'll open LibreOffice Writer to a new document, and then we'll use File, Save As, and set the Save In folder to a known location, and enter the file name Lesson 5 Class News. And as you can see, if you check the title bar, I've already completed that step here. You can also see that in the Styles and Formatting sidebar, when the custom styles are displayed, there are no paragraph styles and there are no page styles. And we went to a lot of work back in Lesson 4 creating these special paragraph styles and page styles, and we do not want to have to go through that process again. One of the options we have available is to use this tool where we can select Load Styles, and that enables us to load styles either from templates that were supplied by LibreOffice or from our own file. And we can select what types of styles to import. I'm going to select all of these options for now, and then I'm going to go and look for the file that I want to import the styles from. So in the Open dialog box, I go through the path to the folder where I saved my documents, and I locate my Lesson 4 document. That's where I created all of these styles, and those are the styles I want to import. So I'll select Open, and now you see that in the page area, there's our page styles, and in the paragraph area, there's the collection of paragraph styles that we created in Lesson 4. The point is that once you create a set of styles in one document, you don't have to redo that in new documents. You can import styles from one document to another. Now that the styles have been imported, I'm going to apply them. I will go to the Page Styles option and make sure that my cursor is in the very first page of this new document, and then I'm going to double click on my first page, and that sets the page style for this new document. Because I set all those boxes on, I checked all those boxes on when I was importing the page style, it imported everything including the text that I had here in the title bar. So I'm going to select that, and I'm going to replace the title with Lesson 5 Class Notes. And then I'll place the cursor in the top line of the body of this new document. On the first line in the new document, I'm going to type Class Notes 4 and leave a space, and then in the menu bar I will select Insert, Field, Date, and that adds the current date to the document. If I don't like the format of this date, I can edit it by double-clicking on that date entry and looking in the Edit Fields dialog box. There are two choices. I can have a fixed date, or I can have the current date. The fixed date will be whatever date it is right now when I entered it, and it will never change. If I select the current date, every time I make a new copy of this document or edit the document, that date will be updated. Let me leave it fixed for now. And then I have a format on all these different ways I can display the date. I'll select this full date option and say OK. And you see that now the format of the date has changed, but it still remains shaded gray because that's an inserted field, not text that I typed. Now, when I entered this new text, the default paragraph style was in place. And although we created a number of custom paragraph styles, in this example, I'm going to use one of the standard paragraph styles that comes with LibreOffice. If I select the paragraph style drop-down menu, you'll see there's a whole group of them, and for my date I'm going to use the style called Heading 1. And you see that that style changes the font, changes the size, including the font used by the inserted date. I jumped ahead by following the instructions in the tutorial and entered the paragraphs that were suggested. You may notice that following the heading 1 paragraph that we selected, the other paragraphs are using the text body style. I'm going to move the cursor to this line that says Introduction to Word Processing, and I'm going to select a new standard paragraph style called Title. And you notice that that changes the font and makes the text large and centered. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a table, and we'll position that table right below the text Introduction to Word Processing. We'll position the text cursor in the paragraph right below the words Introduction to Word Processing. Then from the menu bar, we'll select Table, Insert Table. In the Insert Table dialog box, we'll enter 2 columns and 3 rows. And we'll click the Heading On option, and then we'll select Insert. And here is the table that we inserted, and notice that there's a row for the title for each of the columns. Also notice that once we have inserted a table, the table toolbar has been added to the bottom of the display. Something to keep in mind when you're inserting text into a table, you do not want to hit the Enter key unless you want to add another paragraph to the cell that you're in. If you want to move from one cell to the next, use the Tab key. So let me enter some text in this first cell, and then I'll press the Tab key to move the cursor to the next cell. I'll enter some text in the next cell, which will be another column heading cell, and then press the Tab key, and you'll notice that the cursor jumps down one row and over to the left. I'm going to continue to add some material to each of these cells, and I'll do that outside of the video. But one thing you should know is that if you're in the last cell in the lower right and you press the Tab key, it will add automatically another row to the table. I've gone ahead and added text to the different cells of the table per the instructions in the printed version of the tutorial. Notice what happens. If I enter more text than will fit in a cell, the system automatically wraps the words and makes the cell a little bit bigger. It's obvious with a quick glance that the session column does not need to be as wide as the topic column. Here's a trick. You have to watch carefully, and you have to move the mouse very carefully. If I move the mouse right to the line dividing the left and right columns of the table, I get a 2-way pointing arrow, and I can actually drag that line and change the relative size of the 2 columns. There is, however, a more precise way to change the size of the columns. From the menu bar, I can select Table and go down the list and select Properties, and that will open up the Table Properties dialog box. And I'll just quickly review the different tabs in this dialog box. The Table tab allows me to edit the name, also spacing above and below the table. Text flow provides a number of options on how the text flows from between columns in a table. The Columns tab shows me the actual width of each column. For example, suppose that I wanted that first column to be exactly 1.25 inches wide, and I enter 1.25 and then press the Tab key. Notice what happens. I've changed column 1 to be 1.25 inches, column 2 becomes 6 inches. If I would have changed this column to be 2 inches, watch what happens to column 2. Enter 2, press a Tab. The second column is automatically adjusted so that the overall width of the table remains constant. There's also a tab for borders, and there are a lot of border options, especially dealing with lines around the cells of the border. You also have complete control of the line style and the size, the width of the line, or thickness of the line, and other options that we won't get into at this point. So I'll select OK and get back to my document, and you notice that the columns now have been adjusted. Tables provide a very powerful tool in LibreOffice Writer. You might think of a table as a miniature spreadsheet. In fact, tables within LibreOffice Writer have many of the functions of a spreadsheet. For example, this table was created completely within the LibreOffice Writer document. Here's a row of headings with a certain paragraph style, followed by rows with different column entries, and we can use the date format to enter dates. We can use currency format to enter currency. We can actually have a cell be the result of a calculation the same way we would in a spreadsheet. Here's a total row, and the value you see was not entered manually. It's simply a result of the sum of the total cost column within a table. Notice also that this table has been given a background color and a drop shadow. So you can really enhance documents with tables using LibreOffice Writer. An important question is, do you use tables or columns? Some beginners make the mistake of trying to use page columns to imitate tables. The problem with this is that they have to keep messing with adding and deleting empty paragraphs to keep things lined up between adjacent columns. Columns are designed like columns in a newspaper-style document, and they have the text flow from one column to the other. The use of columns can improve reading speeds for many people, since the eyes can track faster vertically rather than having to track both horizontally and vertically. However, columns should never be substituted for tables. The next topic to be covered in Lesson 5 is frames. You can think of frames as little documents that are inserted in the body of a main document. Frames can contain the same kind of things the main document can contain, for example, text or graphic images. Frames can have their own borders, their own margins, and frames can be anchored to paragraphs in the main document, and that means that they can float with the text in the main document. If the main document text is edited in a way that causes the paragraph to move, the frame anchored to that paragraph will also move. It's also possible to use the wrap function to control how the text flows around a frame. Now I've jumped ahead a little bit, and I've added some text to this document as described in the printed version of Lesson 5. The paragraph style used for this text is the text body paragraph style, but we're going to change that for this first line of text. I'm going to change the paragraph style of this paragraph by going to the text formatting toolbar, selecting the paragraph style drop-down, and then selecting heading 1. I'll position the cursor, the text cursor, in this heading 1 paragraph, and then from the menu bar I'm going to select Insert, Frame, and Frame again. That will open up the Frame dialog box. I'm going to create a frame with a width of 2.5 and a height of 1.5. I'm going to have the position be to the right and the vertical position to be to the top. I want to make sure that the frame is anchored to a paragraph, and then I'll select the wrap option, and then I'll have the text wrap around before the frame. And there's some default spacing that will leave a little space between the frame and the text body that it's wrapping around. Then I'm going to choose the Borders tab and choose Set All 4 Borders. I'm going to adjust the width of the borderline to 0.35. And I'm also going to have this frame cast a shadow to the bottom right. I'll then select the Area tab and choose a color and choose the light yellow color and then select OK. I jumped ahead again a little bit and I've added some text inside my frame. The text in the frame can use any paragraph style and the same things that apply in any other text in the document. If I select the word frame, I can use italic, or I can use bold, or I can use a different font if I like, just for those words. Here's another fun little trick that came up in one of the more recent versions of Windows 10. Most of the younger users know about emoticons, emojis, the funny little symbols like smiley faces that you can introduce into your documents. Well, in Windows 10, here's a trick. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my text cursor in that frame. Then I'm going to hold the Windows key down and press the period key. And that opens up a whole collection of little emojis that I could insert into my body, text body. There are different categories of them, and some of the categories you can scroll down. Oh, what fun. So many things to pick from. So I think what I'll do is I'll just select the little eyes thing and close up that little emoji pop-out box. If I want, I can select that character and I can use the text formatting tool to align it to the right, and I'm in the sidebar with the properties sidebar open where I can do all kinds of formatting of text. I can make it larger, or I can add a shadow. There's all sorts of things that you can do. In any case, frames are very useful tools to know about when you're creating documents. Here are a few points to remember that we covered in Lesson 5. Page and paragraph and other styles can be imported into a new document from existing documents. So once you've created your own custom styles, you can use them over and over again in new documents. Tables provide an easy way to format rows and columns of entries. Tables in LibreOffice Writer provide a number of functions found in spreadsheet software, including formatting cells to display currency or dates, or inserting calculation formulas in cells. And remember, columns should never be used in documents where side-by-side alignment of text is required. Tables are preferred over columns for this application. And then we have frames. Frames can be inserted into the body of a document and can contain their own text or graphics. Frames can be set to make the body text wrap around the frame. And frames can have border lines, background fills, and shadows. Please be sure that once you've completed Lesson 5 once, that you'll start a brand new document, start over, and go through the steps again, and just like practicing the piano, you'll become better and better at word processing each time you practice.